Warning. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect that of the HHN TV or its constituent entities. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody. I'm Drew Duncan, and we are live at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I'm wherever you're listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Underground Sports by Drew Duncan. I am not a needle in a haystack. Real easy to find, I promise you. I'm going to pop right up on that Google search. Guys, plenty to get to today. We're going to be talking about Mike Norvell, the 0-3 start. Is it time for Florida State to cut bait? We're going to be discussing that. Atlanta and Philly, obviously, from last night. Everybody's injured. It's just, if you have a favorite NFL team, just know they're probably missing a key player right now. We're going to be getting into that as well. Bryce Young, he has officially been benched. Plenty to get to. So Atlanta, Philly last night. Look, I'm watching this thing and I'm thinking to myself, Philly's going to win, right? But for some reason, I can't take my eyes off of this damn thing. It's kind of like a train wreck. I'm watching, I'm thinking, well, maybe, you never know. The game was never truly in doubt until Atlanta goes for it on fourth down. They get stuffed. Philly's got the football in phenomenal field position. They elect to throw it. Saquon drops it. The rest is history. Look, it was a total team loss. People are going to be condemning that play call. I, for one, agree with it. I'm going to keep it a buck. You've got your best player on the football team, Saquon Barkley. You don't have A.J. Brown. You've been relying on Barkley for the entire game. Jalen Hurts has had to work extra with his legs. You don't want to give Atlanta the football, and we just saw why. If they do get it back, you want to be able to get them out of position. You don't want to leave a lot of time on the clock. You want to be able to go out by double. I mean, there's a million and one things here. Put the game out of reach one way or the other. The bottom line is, it just didn't happen. It didn't work out for him, but I don't have an issue with the play call. And I know a lot of people are going to say, look, why don't you just run it? Why don't you just run the time off the clock, kick the field goal? Well, that didn't matter because they essentially played a prevent defense. And the old saying was the prevent defense prevents you from winning. Ask Denver Bronco fan about when John Elway was waiting on the sideline. Joe Montana was driving the ball down the field. The announcer, as they pan over to John Elway, goes, hey, John, how does it feel? Kansas City gets the win. They just dropped everybody back. There was no pressure on Cousins whatsoever. He's back there with plenty of time to throw the football. Everybody was making smart decisions. They're getting out of bounds. They're not trying to do too much. The Atlanta was able to move down very quickly. In fact, I would say that the Philly defense made it look easy because they made it easy. You can't blame this loss on Jalen Hurts. Now, you can question whether or not Jalen Hurts is your guy. Look, a lot of people have been to a Super Bowl. Brad Johnson's been to a Super Bowl. Jay Cutler was almost to a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer has been to a Super Bowl. A lot of people have been to a Super Bowl that were in the right place at the right time and surrounded by phenomenal talent. Jalen played his ass off in that Super Bowl. They still lost. You can blame the defense. You can blame the play calling, but you can also certainly say that fumble changed the entire dynamic of that game. And so now you have to start asking yourself, what do we do if this season ends up being very similar to a season ago? Look, I've already talked about it. I talked about it before last night. The reality is that Jordan Love, you watch the Green Bay Packers, did a lot more with a lot less against Philly. And Jalen had 3 turnovers in that football game, 2 picks and a fumble. Now, it needs to sink in. You need to start asking yourself, if this season ends the way it does, we can do worse than Jalen Hurts, but can we potentially do better than Jalen Hurts? That needs to be the new question. The new question needs to be, if we lose Jalen Hurts and we still have this primary team around us, we're set at the tight end position. Who knows when A.J. Brown's going to come back, but when he's in the game, there are a few better. We have one of the best running backs in the NFL. He carried that first win over the Green Bay Packers. When you start looking and you start asking, can we be better or just as good without him at the bare minimum, and find a quarterback who's a little more efficient, not making as many mistakes? You see what Justin Fields is doing right now in Pittsburgh. Do you make a move? I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds absurd. I know it sounds far-fetched. I know it sounds asinine. I know it sounds all those ways. But at the end of the season, think about it like this. You're going to have to make a really big move if you don't think Jalen Hurts is the guy. Drafting a rookie quarterback may not behoove you. If Justin Fields keeps this up in Pittsburgh, depending on how things go, because we don't know what's going to happen with Russ, but you've already had a 2-0 start. He's been smart with the football. He's managed the game. What more do you really want right now? He's not trying to do too much. He's not going outside of himself a whole hell of a lot. He's not going outside the playbook a whole hell of a lot. You give him a chance to be the guy. Do you take the shot? You're probably not going to go after Russ. We don't know how things are going to end up, but you probably don't make a move on Russ, right? But you have to start questioning, can we potentially get Justin Fields and see if we can make that work? We let go of Jalen Hurts at the end of the season. We make a trade for Fields, which Pittsburgh's going to need a quarterback, because I highly doubt they sign Russ for another season unless he plays phenomenal. They're going to be trying to sign Justin Fields themselves. The only even swap maybe that they look at and go, Justin for Jalen. I'm just saying. Meanwhile, Kirk Cousins, everybody wants to bring up, his record under the bright lights, Monday night, Sunday night, big games, all that BS, prime time, yada, yada, yada. Look, it is what it is. He knows where he's at right now. He knows the money that he's making. Last weekend, I said he played like he had FU money, because he does. Probably another reason why you don't give him the football back. He's got nothing to lose right now. So what if they start Penix Jr.? Buddy is going to get his dinero. Hell of a win by Atlanta. Total team loss by Philly. If this season is no better than last year, I think you go after Justin Fields. Depending on how things go with the Steelers, you try and figure that out. And with Jalen, it just kind of is what it is. You let him sniff out free agency. You tell him, look, you could request a trade, bro. We're allowing you to do this. Everybody's made excuses for him. I've made excuses for him. After a while, the excuses have to stop. He's had every opportunity to change things. He cannot get it done. Obviously, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out, but the NFC East isn't going to be that strong. New York, forget about it. Washington, much as I love Jane Daniels, it's going to take a couple of years probably. They maybe win 8 or 9 games this season. They're not going to be in the running. This is Philly's division to lose right now. It really is. Not a good look. Should have been clean sweep in the division. I'm not even sure that happens. I'm really not. And even if they got to the playoffs, so far predicated upon what we've seen, no. It does boil down to execution. There was nothing wrong with the play calling in that game. Like I said, everybody's out. For college, everybody's out. Quinn Ewers is out. He's questionable coming up, but honestly, I let him sit another week if I'm Texas. I'm not doing all that. 49ers, it just got reported that Debo is going to be out. Look, man, you don't have C-Mac. You didn't look very good last weekend. You had the huge win over the Jets, which we'll find out how good of a win that is later on down the road. Obviously, they beat Tennessee, but Will Levis right now is playing exceptionally careless football. That's the way that is. You need Debo and you need C-Mac, and that is a bottom line scenario. They were trying to get Debo going over the last couple of games the same way that they used to use him before they got C-Mac, where he was literally doing everything. Everything. Debo was doing everything. Now, that's the reality of the situation, whether anybody likes it or not. And I know that, oh boy, had that one really good game, 140 yards. The team, I think, ran for 180 in that football game. I'm just telling you right now, at the end of the day, on a consistent level, Brock Purdy's not your quarterback. You can't get it done without C-Mac. And now you don't have Debo. Forget about it. You're not winning until you at least get Christian McCaffrey back. And I do mean on a consistent basis. Look, it was week number 1. The Jets are still trying to get it together. Aaron Rodgers played like hell. Drop passes by the Jets, penalties, turnovers. It was a nightmare. The defense really did a lot for the 49ers, and they continue to do a lot for the 49ers, but offensively, they're hit and miss. Even with C-Mac. Look, you go back and you look at the key losses from a season ago. The key losses now, where C-Mac usually had 65 or less or was unavailable, and Brock Purdy would struggle horrifically in those games. 10 total turnovers, 9 picks, and a fucking fumble. You think you're going to be able to win games like that? I get tired of every time the 49ers win, 49er fan comes breathing down everybody's neck like we don't understand what's happening with Frisco. I understand it's your job to stick up for your QB, but stop acting like he's Joe Montana or Steve Young, because he's not. He's nowhere near it. If Joe Montana had Christian McCaffrey, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kittle, that line, that defense, they would have cleared the Super Bowl. 50-0 would have been the result of that game. And I'm not even the biggest Joe Montana fan. But come on, get Steve Young, the guy who's run with his helmet off on multiple occasions. Athletic, tough as hell, phenomenal arm. You give him Brandon Ayuk. You just stop it, 49er fan. This is the reality of your team, whether you like it or not. But what are you going to do? Oh, man, we didn't have Debo. We didn't have C-Mac. What happened to that doesn't matter. I'll wait, because you're not going to be able to give me that excuse. It was one game, man. No. It's multiple games. You just don't like what the reality is. And it's fine. I know reality is hard to bite the dust of. You know, the same way the Denver Bronco fan wanted to, pump up Peyton Manning and say that it was all him when they won the Super Bowl. Fuck out of here. Akeem Talib said the defense is tired of carrying the offense, man. That was 100% the defense and some crazy-ass stuff that happened in the meantime. Out of here. You cannot win without Christian McCaffrey and Debo on a consistent basis. And it proves, remember, I asked the question, without Brandon Ayuk, are you still basically the same football team? Kind of looks like you are. And Kyle Shanahan, let's keep it a buck. He's so hit and miss as a head football coach. There's no real consistency there. Well, we're always winning. We're always in the playoffs. That's fine, man. But when it comes to big games and without having your guys, he can't get it done. Tom Brady constantly was working with a rotating amount of receivers. If somebody was hurt, didn't matter. You had number 12 back there. It is not like that with Brock Purdy. It's like that with Patrick Mahomes. Do you understand what I'm talking about here? The all-time true greats. It doesn't matter who's in or out. We are going to win games. Now, that's whether anybody likes it or not. Somebody else that's out is Cooper Kupp with the Rams. Look, you're struggling without him, or you're struggling with him. Think you're going to be any better without him? Now, I pretty much said the same thing a season ago, and again, the Rams, they were a really hit and miss football team last year. Look, I think it's crazy when you think about Matthew Stafford, because you always kind of say to yourself, I think he's done. I think he's at the end of his rope. I'm not sure how much further in his career he can go. The trade with him and Jared Goff was snickered and laughed at, mocked, made fun of in every way that you could potentially think of. They were down in the Super Bowl. They came back. They won. Look, he got his. I'm happy for him. It is what it is. Now we're moving forward. Now we're how far down the line from that Super Bowl? Where's the run game? The defense, look, even without Aaron, which I'm not going to say that's not a huge loss, because it is, they're not the best, but they're not the worst by any stretch of the imagination. You're still okay defensively. And I think with LA, you can still rely on your defense to win you some football games. But Cooper Kupp draws so much attention. You don't really have a true number 2, in my opinion, that can really step up and get it done. The run game is very hit and miss. You can't tell me you don't miss Todd Gurley, because you absolutely do. I know you've won a title since then, but how'd you do in the Super Bowl when you didn't have him? The Patriots were not afraid of Jared Goff. They made him be a quarterback, and he was unsuccessful. Now you look at Stafford, and you have to ask yourself, is he still in a place in his career where, despite how tough he is, I mean, come on, one of the most badass plays of all time, the shoulder, I mean, seriously, through the game-winning touchdown, wincing in pain. You could hear the man but he did it. But do you still think he's in a place where he could carry that team by himself? Look, if this is 2014, 2015, even though I've been critical of him throughout his entire career, there's still a chance they can win some football games predicated upon relying on his arm. It ain't like that no more. It's just not. And he's been injured and hit and miss. And, right now, you look at McVay, and he hates the preseason. He didn't bother to coach a game in the preseason. The reality is this is what you preseason for. So that way you know who you have on your roster that you could bring up and plug and play and use them in a way that is going to help you win. Now, who do they have that they know, okay, we go to this guy, we're going to win? They don't exist on that team right now. They don't exist. There's nobody there. And I can appreciate McVay and how confident he is and some of the cockiness and ego and all that. But man, I'm right now, it has to stop. It has to go away. It's over the top. You are where you are right now. You got your ring. Okay, fine. Do you keep winning or not? I don't know about you, but I like to keep winning. As long as Cooper Kupp is out, the Rams are going to have real problems. That's just all there is to it. I, for one, would have figured out a way to keep Odell Beckham Jr. He fit right in schematically with what you were doing. And if he hadn't got injured in the Super Bowl, I maintain that he would have ended up being the MVP. You got to figure that thing out, Broham, because you're in dire straits right now. You don't know where to go. You're lost. There's no two ways around it. The Rams are lost without Cooper Kupp. They're lost without a true run game. Cooked. So Tyler Huntley, he's just signed on with the Dolphins. Tua's questionable, but more than likely, let's give it a buck. He's not going to play. Look, there's all this stuff about should he retire. Look, I'm not here to tell a man what to do. I guess if anybody gives a damn about my opinion on it, I will simply tell you that there comes a time when your health has to come first. And I know that he is looking at a lot of money. It's not really worth it to spend the rest of your days sitting in a chair drooling. We all love the big hits. We all love the physicality of football. We love everything. But there comes a point in time where I personally think your body is telling you, bro, you can't do this. You're done. You had your time. I'm sorry it was short-lived, but you're done. And to be honest, he really, look, not to downplay it, but let's give it a buck. Was he playing really great until he got injured? I mean, I hate to phrase it like that, but what else? I mean, come on. He was playing timid football, and the whole reason why he just went for it and did a truck move was because he was getting desperate because of how horrible he was playing. How many, was it 3 INTs before that happened? And look, I can appreciate McDaniels getting his back, saying you're the QB of this family. You're here. It is, and that's, look, man, that's great. I mean, compared to what Maurice Clarett got on Ohio State, I mean, it's amazing. But Miami, they know that they're cooked at QB right now. Thompson isn't going to get it done. Huntley's probably not going to be any better, but he can't be any worse than the option sitting in front of him. I mean, what are you going to do right now? Look, if you are Miami, you saw that you have the potential for a really phenomenal run game. I'm old school, man. You run the football, you take pressure off the quarterback, things work out. Here's the problem, though. Now that Tua's not in there, even with all of his struggles, all the issues he's had, especially in the playoffs, all the injuries, teams know that if he absolutely has to, he can damn sure throw a barn burner to Tyreek 50 down the field, and it'll be on the button. So the stretch the defense combination with the run game has the potential to work. I don't know what was up with Tua that night. But with that run game and some of the plays that were there and some of the throws that he made, it was just horrible to watch. Now, if you're Miami, what are you going to do? I'm starting Huntley because at least he gives you some of the added mobility that you're looking for, some of what you have with Tua in terms of the added mobility. You can simplify your offense. You can make it a little bit more collegiate, and you could start running some option plays. They were lining up in some straight-up eye right. We've been seeing it a lot in the NFL. I've been telling people the running game is going to come back and in traditional eye right 22 dive. We're seeing fullback plays up the middle. We're seeing pooch passes out on the flat. You're seeing all that stuff. With Huntley, I think he would blend right into that. With Thompson, there's no chance in hell. I mean, seriously. At least with Huntley, you can run some option plays, create the mobility factor, get the defense to creep up, and then try and sneak a few over the top. You're going to be able to work the middle of the field. You can work the middle of that defense with some drag routes, some 5 and ins, some 10 and outs. You're going to be able to do those things, some button hooks, things that like what we saw what they were doing last weekend, but it wasn't working because Tua couldn't get anybody the ball. I mean, that dude couldn't have hit the backside of a barnyard last weekend. You're just going to have to really simplify it. You start Huntley. You got no shot in hell with Thompson. You have a slight chance with Huntley. And I think that you can really get the run game going and balance it out. Let your defense make some plays because when you look at it logically, the defense played very well despite all of those turnovers. They shouldn't have been in that game at all. So I think to myself, that's how I would do it. But that's me, though. I don't know what McDaniels is thinking. I don't know what he's going to do, but I think you've got to give Tua a lot of time to recover. Look, I won an award for a piece that I did on concussions. As you get older, you actually recover from concussions quickly now. The obvious thing to surmise is, hey, look, you're getting older, your brain is fully developed, so you're going to recover quicker. But that's nothing that they've solidified, right? There's no actual evidence to that because obviously you can't lift the lid off the top and take a look and finger around in there and see what the hell's going on. Poke around. You can't do any of that, right? So I'm keeping Tua out for a couple of weeks. At the bare minimum, 2 weeks, you rest, you sleep, you drink a lot of water, you take it easy. We'll get you back when we think we're truly ready to get you back. You can't rush this. I legitimately think a man's life is at stake right now, and I'm not even fucking around. I mean, damn, man, we've already seen it happen potentially one time on the field, 9.5 minutes. 9.5 minutes. You can't rush these things. And I've always said that a big part of what happens with athletes is they rush the return. Now, the other thing during that interview with Dr. Roush, when we were talking about concussions and really any injury at all, it's the accumulative effect. So injuring the same thing over and over again. Now I'm worried about the accumulative effect. If I'm Tua, if I'm the Dolphins, I'm worried about the accumulative effect. I'm keeping him out for as long as I can. If I'm Tua, I'm seeing a neurologist and really asking the questions. And in the meantime, I'm starting Huntley. I'm running a collegiate style of option offense, whether I'm under center, out of the pistol, whatever the case may be. And I'm just going to have to figure out a way to deal with this thing and see what happens with Tua going forward. I mean, that's really, to me, your only choice. All right, so everybody's geeked up on the Saints right now. In fact, there was a post that just got put out, right, where they were talking about all the points that they've scored and, the 3 teams that have scored over 90 points, or the 2 other teams, I should say, scored 90 points in the first couple of weeks of the season of the NFL, and they won Super Bowls. Well, that's good and dandy and all, but let's just peel back a little bit. Look, something that I've always said about Derek Carr is he'll have one really great season, then he'll have one mediocre season that makes you question how this guy's a quarterback in the NFL. Now, is this going to be the really great season, Derek Carr? We don't know yet because we're only 2 weeks into this thing. Now, I'm not sold yet that the NFC South is going to be tougher than anybody thinks. Look, you could be geeked up on that game last night for Atlanta all you want to, but it is one game. Kirk Cousins is still Kirk Cousins. Baker Mayfield, okay, really great win over Detroit. Let's not forget they had a significant lead in that game. They lost it. They basically had to come back to win that football game. The New Orleans Saints, Derek Carr is still Derek Carr. Do you feel like you have enough true balance with 41 in your QB to go, hey, yeah, we can pull this off? Have you maybe finally figured it out? I mean, there's always the possibility, right? I mean, look, my thing is always this. There are no guarantees other than there are no guarantees, right? There's no guarantee that New Orleans is going to be able to keep this up. Simultaneously, there's no guarantee that they're not. And I'm okay with being geeked up, but here's my thing. You dusted Carolina the first week out. Bryce Young has already been benched, and we're going into week 3 of the NFL season. Okay, so let's start there. Benched. That's who you beat. A football team that decided it was better to get rid of DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey. Come on. You have to start looking at things and going, who are we beating? How are we beating them? Why are we beating them? So that's number one. Congratulations. You mollywopped the Carolina Panthers. Good for you, bro. But to me, that doesn't mean anything. I'm just being sincere. In fact, I'm being more than sincere. I'm being the most 100 that I could potentially even begin to think of. Are they going to be able to do anything in pressure? Well, they can beat a really good football team, because I'm not convinced on their win over Dallas. Because with Dallas, this happens every year. They get a really good win to start the season, then they get obliterated by week 2 or 3. And all of a sudden, all the talk starts coming down. Been saying forever, Dak Prescott can't get it over 40 yards to anybody, especially on target. These guys are constantly having to come to full-on dead stops in order to get to the football. Otherwise, defenders are there to pick it off. So I'm not sold on the winner with the Dallas Cowboys. And again, you look at the NFC East right now, who the hell is over there? You can't even say Philly. You can't even say Philly right now. So I'm not with it. I'm glad they've been able to rack up some points. I'm glad they've seemingly found some really good balance. And look, Derek Carr's a nice dude, okay? There's nothing personal with Derek Carr. The teammates love him. I mean, remember when he got hurt with the Raiders and he was crying and everybody was crying and they were upset. And, let's not forget, what was it that season? They were 12-4 and they looked phenomenal. But he got hurt right before the playoffs. I mean, that was pretty much what ended up being the deciding factor on Jack Del Rio, right? Remember that? Let's be clear. The other part of this is we don't know if Derek Carr is going to be able to stay healthy or not. He didn't stay healthy last season. We're only into week 2 so far. We don't know what's going to happen by week 7 or 8 with Derek Carr. And it's a fair assessment. Look, injuries are part of the game, as we've seen. Everybody that's significant is out. I just don't think that the New Orleans Saints are a team that I'm ready to say yes to. Great. They've racked up a lot of points in 2 games. Not buying it. Now, I know Saints fan is going to go, come on, man. Dallas has got Micah Parsons and they got a solid defense. I will actually concede to that. I'm not saying that I'm completely unimpressed. I'm just saying I'm not impressed with who they've beat, because Dallas always figures out ways to beat themselves anyway. And Carolina is Carolina. Speaking of which, we are not going to spend a lot of time on this. Like I just said, Bryce Young, he's already been benched. Andy Dalton's going to be starting, by the way. By the way, in case you're wondering, Bryce Young is 2-16. And they've already been outscored 73-13 this season. Now, like I said, no more C-Mac, no more DJ Moore. I'm not saying that Bryce Young was put in the best situation, but he does not see the field. He just doesn't. He doesn't see the field. Missing guys wide open, careless throws. Is Andy Dalton going to be any better? I mean, look. Most people would tell you that they're probably not aware that Andy Dalton is even still in the NFL. There's no other way to say what it's like when you're talking about the career of Andy Dalton. There's no other way to word it other than most people will tell you, bro, I didn't even know he was still playing. That's that. Do they have any better chance to win? You can't get any worse, can you? That's what you have to ask yourself. Every time you do something, I always say you have to ask yourself, are you getting better or are you getting worse? They're getting a little better. About that much. And that's about it. I don't expect them to win any games, not any meaningful ones. And even if they happen to pull a couple of them out, oh well. I don't think you're going to see a resurgence kind of like what you've seen so far with Minnesota and Sam Darnold. But people were saying the same thing last year. Didn't work out. So I'm not sold on that situation either. I think that I feel bad for Bryce Young to an extent. Simultaneously, he's just not cut. Now, do I think he could be a good solid backup somewhere? Maybe if he sticks around the league, learns some things, gets his field vision under control, there's a lot of potential there. But right now, he's just playing either too fast or too slow, one of the two. His head's not in the game. Whatever the hell it is, it's just not there. So, not a bad move. At some point, you have to make a decision. It's early enough in the season that you can try and recover. Okay? It's better than doing this when you're 1-6. You're 0-2. You don't think you have a shot. To hell with it. Let's move on. That's pretty simple. So, Mike Norvell, there is a lot obviously going around right now about whether or not he should still be the Florida State head coach. Well, I'm just going to tell you like this. This is who Florida State has lost to so far this season. You look at Boston College, they've had exactly 2 double-digit winning seasons since they entered the ACC in 2005. They've had 4 losing seasons, and they just got spanked. By the way, Georgia Tech, they've only had 2 double-digit winning seasons since 2000. In fact, since 2015, they've had 6 losing seasons. And they just got beat by Syracuse, who, as a lifelong Syracuse fan, I'd like to say that we're better, but we're not. The ACC's not incredibly tough this season, but it still got Miami in the ACC right now. I've said that Miami, for the first couple of weeks, is the most complete football team that I've seen in college football. Defensively, offensively, run game, everything, special teams. To me, they're the most complete. And defensively, the way they're getting their hands up and all that stuff, even if Q's figures things out this year, you're going to have to see Miami at some point. That's not going to be a fun one to play. So there's that. In Memphis, to be honest with you, they've been the best team, technically, than Boston College and Georgia Tech combined out of all of them. They've had more double-digit win seasons. So I don't know where people are getting this thing about powerhouses, but, you know, Memphis is kind of known for upsetting people in their own backyard. That wasn't an upset. That was just a team beating a team. In other words, nothing special. We're not talking about one supreme team, another really bad team. We're not talking about 2 evenly matched, really good teams. None of that. It was just one team beating another team. That's it. That game meant nothing to anybody other than Florida State trying to get a win. Me personally, if Norvell somehow figures out a way to make it through this season, he's not going to make it through next year. And by the way, there have been reports circulating from tweets that have been found of fans who were at that game, of potential recruits And they were going, bro, this ain't happening. There are people walking out right now. In fact, a direct quote from Earl Brooks, who one of his kids was supposed to be a 2026 big-time recruit. Quote, FSU lost some recruits today. I wish y'all could have heard some of those parents and players. Just know I wasn't the only parent to leave the game at halftime. The difference a year makes. Folks, it ain't even been a year. It ain't even been a year. What a difference the beginning of another season makes. Look, I still maintain that Florida State should have got their shot in the CFP last year. I don't want to hear it. We're not going over this again. We're not debating this again. I've gone over and over and over this with people on the internet. I'm done with it. But that was last season. They were given the mulligan and a number 10 ranking to begin this year, and they blew it. But this is not the same football team that saved the job of Norvell from a season ago. What was it? 10 players ended up in the NFL? It's not easy to recover from that, especially in the day and age of the transfer portal. They got the best that they could probably find with DJU. They're done. The season is over. Now you have to convince everybody to push forward. Now you have to convince everybody there's a reason to play. You have to convince everybody there's a reason to give it your best. No, we're not going to be in the playoffs. Yeah, sure, you're probably going to want to transfer when the bowl game happens. But to me, and this is me, you're just going to have to shoot straight. And you're going to have to say something that you don't want to say. And this is going to be how he saves his job. And that is, you're going to have to look everybody in that room in the face and go, here's the thing. You're pissed off, and that's fine. We're not going to be in the college football playoffs. That's fine. You don't want to be in a meaningless bowl game? I'm okay with that. But you have to ask yourself, if you feel like you don't like me anymore and you want to transfer the hell out of here, what do you think the going rate is for a transfer who clearly gave up and played like and couldn't get the job done the rest of the season? That's it. That's how you motivate them. You remind them that while the transfer portal exists and while the transfer portal is at their disposal, that come December, this is the reality. If you do not put in the effort, everybody else is going to see it. You're only going to be able to blame me for so long before they cut you. Then where's your NIL money? What are you going to do then? You're going to have to play with your own self-pride. And by playing for your own self-pride, that is going to lead to you playing for the man next to you. That is going to lead for the leader stepping up and doing what they need to do. You want to get your duckies, you want to go somewhere else where you think you can win a championship, that's how you're going to get it done. You're going to have to be selfish while being unselfish, because being selfish is going to lead to being unselfish. And I need the leaders of this football team to stop the crap and man up. You want to lay down and give up? Fine. Do it your whole life. But not here. Because once you start quitting, you quit forever. That's it. That's what I would tell my players. And I think that would be the only way that he'd be able to get them to step up and do anything. And I do mean anything. All right, everybody, I am Drew Duncan. We are live. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. And wherever you're listening to podcasts, tell your device to play Underground Sports by Drew Duncan. I am not a needle in a haystack, man. You Google me, and I'm going to pop right up, compadre. Do not forget that our Football Insider is going to be joining the program coming up this Thursday. And, of course, Friday, our MMA Insider, Austin Ford, will be on the show as well. In the meantime, your local programming is next. Don't you dare touch that dial.